Just want to start off by saying I am a new subscriber as of about an hour ago.
Thank you.
Yeah, congrats. Thank you. How did you find us?
Well, yeah. Interestingly enough, I'm not sure why, but you were suggested in my YouTube feed.
Is that why?
It's very. I find it disconcerting that a theist is getting suggested to watch atheist videos.
We're not taking out ads either.
I'm sorry that you feel that way. I feel the opposite.
No, I'm kidding. Clearly.
No.
So Damon, really quick, because I am trying to get to the bottom of this. We had a massive spike in subscriptions. It came up as suggested. Really?
Yes, it came up as a suggested video. It was the video where you had a conversation with somebody from New York about intelligent design.
Sounds about right. Maybe Victor. Yeah.
No, Victor didn't bring up intelligent design.
Really?
Was it Victor?
It was one of the
I stand corrected.
Call. So what did you want to talk about today, Damon? We've been circling around. What do you got?
So I appreciate your the way you go about trying to find answers, and truth is very scientific, and I'm a scientific theist, if there is such a thing, and so I really appreciated that. However, I will say I'm a little. I didn't appreciate, you guys do a lot of eye rolling, and there's some condescension going on with stuff you don't agree with. And so I'm hoping we can avoid that because we don't agree.
I'm hoping to avoid that as well. I mean, there are things that I say during the show that are clearly to lighten the mood, not just for the conversation, because if we're having a disagreement about matters that people feel very closely about, for example, like, I don't know, religion and politics, why would we ever talk about those? Then I find that it's more helpful if you can say something that gets someone to chuckle, but also, like, there's an audience as well, and they can glare at me if I'm not funny.
And I mean, another piece is that there are a lot of arguments that might be new to you that are very old to us, and
fair enough.
A lot of it, yeah. But what did you want to talk about?
Okay, so I'm gonna try my hand at explaining why there is God, and why there could potentially be proof of God, and I want you to try and shoot it full of holes for me.
That is
Let me get my Tommy gun.
Wonderful way to, absolutely. Because if your scripture holds up, then it should have every reason to hold up if it's true, right?
Or be held up by a priest.
Absolutely.
At the beginning of the service.
Absolutely. So that the last caller sounds like she spoke. That story about the guy in the Vatican. It sounds like he was a very wise man, and he's doing the right thing there. And
he became a wise man without cutting any babies in half.
Jamie, we can let the man talk.
All right. Sorry, too much.
Yeah.
Okay. So can we start with the baseline? I'm gonna tell you a little something about my life, and I'm gonna ask you some questions that you may find personal and you don't want to answer. If you don't want to answer it, I understand. But we're trying to create a baseline.
No problem. Damon, just so that we're on the same page before we get started, we are going to want to pick things up just because it's getting toward the end of the show and we want to have the full conversation.
We don't know what you're going to say, but oftentimes when people say, let me just tell you a quick thing about my life, they then try and read a 4-page synopsis about the time they went to the store.
Yeah, it's almost as bad
I short and quick to the point. So
there's only room for one of me on the show.
In my life, I have faced my own mortality on several occasions, as well as people who are in very, very close relationships with me, immediate family, mother, father, son, daughter, wife. Have also faced their own mortality. I mean, I'm not talking about like, oh my God, I might die. I'm talking about like very close to dying. And because of that experience alone has brought me from being an atheist to being a theist. And my question to you is, have either of you faced your own mortality, or, for example, your wife or your mother or father? Have you ever faced that mortality?
Absolutely.
You have.
Yeah.
Mine are slightly different. So most frequently, I have directly addressed the idea that I could die, or more specifically, be murdered, right? It's the way that I, as a child and as an adult, right? Like there's an innate human, like, oh my gosh, I'm surrounded by darkness. I do not know what is around me. This is alarming because I am a human and my ancestors that had this survived more an evolutionary fear of saber-toothed tigers jumping out of the dark and eating your face or whatever. So to conquer that, particularly as a child, I closed my eyes and I held absolutely still, and then I imagined that there was a murderer immediately above my bed with either an axe or a long knife that was going to kill me now. So over the course of my life, I've faced, at very least mentally, as directly as I could, death. That, and there are a couple of times where I've turned absolutely the wrong way on a one-way road, specifically on highways, which is pretty freaking fatal, but I made it. But other than that,
all right. But
other than almost getting hit by a semi-truck.
Yeah. See, but that is not. That's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know it's not. And Eric is close to the mark.
It's about actually getting hit.
So I've
not thinking about it, actually experiencing.
Yeah. Eric is going to be much closer to the mark than me.
Yeah, and it's not just my own experiences, which I would really rather not get into. But I would rather
I totally understand.
Talk about. There was a time that I wrote for a newspaper. I was an on-scene photojournalist for a while, and when I would get on scene, I've seen and experienced a whole lot of death and a lot of really gruesome stuff and a lot of stuff that immediately happens with families and with loved ones and how that works out. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it. So when we're talking about death, it's not something that is new to me. And
So would you agree that when there are three people in a room and a body on the ground, because you've seemingly experienced this. So it is clear to you through your experience that there are three people, not four. That body doesn't feel like a person.
No, it doesn't.
And if you've actually experienced this, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Now, let me ask you, Damon, because I feel like I see where you're going with this, and I want to ask you. Can things be more or less true depending on how emotionally charged the situation is, right? So would that be a true fact with us talking about the hypothetical now versus us being in the room with a dead person together? Or can we still make the same true false statements about reality?
That's a good thought. Yeah. Well, I would say, certainly emotion, runs, very high in situations like that. So I could see where that could potentially cloud your judgment. Is that what you're alluding to?
Well, in part. Really what I want to get at is kind of your toolbox for how you make sense of the world and what you use to reason out what's true and false. And so your example shows me that there's a possibility that you might be ascribing certain characteristics to bodies and life. And I'm just trying to find different ways to kind of get a good feel for where you're at and talk to you. Try and talk to the core of that. But go ahead. So when you're talking about a body not being a person, are you alluding to the idea that the soul has left the body?
Well, something has. I'm not going to say the soul because I don't know. Like you were saying, there's no proof.
Well,
so,
but that being said,
real quick,
if you're in the room when somebody passes, or that presence leaves, you feel it, and you can't say, well, no, you don't.
Yeah, you can.
If you haven't actually personally experienced it, then there's no way to say, well, that's not real. Because if you talk to emergency room doctors, if you talk to emergency room nurses, if you talk to any people that deal
Damon,
with,
real quick,
yes,
Damon. But also, if you talk to Eric, you get a different answer.
Yeah, I mean, so the funny thing is the newspaper went out because it's past the year 2000 and newspapers are going out. And when it went out, one of the jobs that I got was at an emergency room as a registrar. So I've worked closely with emergency room nurses as well. And
Excellent.
What you see is that in all of those situations, you get a really dark sense of humor because you need to deal with it.
Yes, you do.
But to say that you feel it, I mean, if we're going to talk about things that you feel, there are lots of different ways people can feel about different things. I really don't care about how you feel.
Right.
I want to know about what's true.
I would.
Right.
That's a great point, and I actually would like to try and avoid feelings.
Me too.
Because you can't pin that down, so that's my bad for using that.
No,
word.
that's okay.
No.
Okay.
But it's not the word that we're concerned about. It's the usage of that. I feel it, therefore it reflects reality as an attempted pathway to truth. Do you believe that ghosts? Real quick.
Sorry, go ahead.
Damon, let me see if I can find a through way. Do you believe that ghosts float through Earth and contact us like there's spirits floating around?
Do I believe in ghosts? Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, yes, I do.
Okay. Well, then I have to find a different example. Okay. So there are also auras and chakras and lots of other religious beliefs that people can tell you.
Absolutely.
No, I feel that it's true. So if you have person A and you have person B, and they can both use the same method and come to completely contradictory answers, is that method reliable as far as coming to a pathway for accurate conclusions about reality?
No.
Okay.
It is not.
The method of I feel this, I perceive this, therefore it's true, oftentimes results in contradictory conclusions. For example, the one that you have put forward because you and Eric have experienced it differently. You said at the beginning of this call that you are, I think your words were, I'm a scientific Christian.
Well, scientific theist. I believe in God.
But theist.
I'm a person that requires scientific evidence. I look very close. I'm by nature. I tend to disbelieve before I believe.
Okay, that's good. But real quick, just very, very quick question. Before you have what you would look at and deem as sufficient evidence to come to a conclusion, what conclusion, if any, do you hold about a question? So for example, unicorns are all pink or whatever. Don't look into the specifics, but it's like before you have evidence and can look into this question, before you have enough evidence, what is your state of belief as far as the pinkness of unicorns? Like,
I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
Yeah, that's because I did that bit very friggin' terribly. It's a sort of like, basically I should just say, so you reserve belief until there's sufficient evidence. So if someone said to you, no, all unicorns are pink, or whatever hypothetically you want, before you knew anything else about unicorns or whatever, maybe because it's not like a significant thing to you, you might go like, oh, okay, that's an interesting fact about unicorns, and move on. But if someone said, oh no, do you know that? Are you, I forget the specific name for unicorn scientists or whatever. Do you know things about the ecology of, that's probably also the wrong word, of unicorns or whatever?
Uniologists?
A uniologist, you presumably would say, well, this is a conclusion that I hold based on this evidence, and that affects my level of confidence. So far, when we've discussed this, when we've discussed a thing leaving a body, I have done my best to point out that that is a feeling that is, one, not experienced universally between people, which is an unreliable way of determining facts about reality. But you have also not presented anything that is close to scientific evidence, and I can tell you the research into this is the research that uses research dollars and applies a scientific method of investigating it isn't happening now because it was done and we didn't find anything like a soul that could be measured. So it becomes a question of supernatural forces, and if you are a scientific theist, presumably the scientific that you're talking about doesn't include the science of being able to tell, you know, what the color of the invisible pink unicorn.
Of the soul.
And really,
if it's a non-physical reality thing.
And one other place that you can look is the studies that they've done on people who've had traumatic brain injuries, people who've historically been lobotomized, things like that.
Or have had their corpus callosum severed, the split brain.
Yep. They can develop completely different personalities, and everything that you attribute to the core of a person, what they like, what they don't like, what they find funny, what they do when they're nervous. Those are all things that have been shown to be inextricably linked to the brain. Yeah. And when you damage the brain, you lose it. And so I guess a good question is, when you subtract those things, because you know that those are physical, what's left?
Interesting.
You know?
All right, whole number one.
So you have another, but you actually called in with a different question. And
let me throw this one more at you, and then we can move on to another caller. Okay.
Okay.
As long as you promise to keep in touch.
And will you call again, because you are fun to talk to?
Yeah.
No, nice. All right.
Friendly.
Well, let me put it to you this way.
Sure.
So I've recently, not recently, but recent as in the last 20 years, I've come to the conclusion that atheism is afforded to those who can afford it.
Oh, yeah.
For example, if you are living in a third world country, a war-torn country, or a country where, death is around you on a daily basis, you don't find atheists. You just don't.
Not true.
Yeah,
I mean, there may be one or two in 100, or but it is a very, very, very rare thing to find people who are up against it, as it were.
So
I don't believe in God.
Yeah, there's a difference there. The difference is how many people are non-believers versus how many people can actively speak out as non-believers. Right, so you have a significant, let's say 10% of the population being the nuns, and that's the conservative figure, 20% if you're building it up.
20% would be a conservative figure in American society of I don't identify with a religion.
Right.
Which includes people that
even if you were to
read their horoscopes seriously.
Yeah, even if you were to cut that in half and say 1 in 10 people is an atheist, right? I would challenge you to see that it's not so much that there aren't people that don't believe, it's that they don't have the opportunity to speak out in a lot of those countries. And regardless, we can argue about this all day long, that has nothing to do with facts. It's opinions and feelings about it, right? We can talk about how many people are that. I really don't care. Everybody can become Mormon tomorrow. That doesn't make Mormonism true, right? So I really wouldn't waste... I wouldn't waste time on that. That's true,
but you have to apply that thought process to, like, for example, people who believe in flat Earth, for example.
Why?
clearly, I'm not a big supporter of the idea that the Earth is flat, and the reason why I'm not a supporter of that. The reason why I don't believe it is because we have scientifically proven data, and you can argue it all day long and say it's not real, but I tend to believe that, majority kind of rules and answers like this. No. You can't say, well, we have all this scientific evidence and we have all this proof that the Earth is round, but then turn around on the same token and say that the majority of the world is wrong because they believe in God.
Well, those two things are unrelated.
That doesn't make sense.
So we can conclude that the Earth is round. In that conclusion is in no way related to the number of people that accept that the Earth is an oblate spheroid, that there's a globe, right? If the only people that believed that were the people that had studied it, and there were 9 trillion other people on the planet that refused to listen, the fact of reality would remain the same. And the reasons for concluding it are not like a democratic government. It's not a vote. So the analogy you're attempting to draw here doesn't match. So we're not saying, oh, you shouldn't say that there's a God, regardless of the fact that most people are theists, because the fact that most people on Earth nominally identify themselves as theist is irrelevant to the question of the existence of a God and irrelevant to how we should consider this proposition, the proposition that a God exists.
Yeah.
In Saudi Arabia, where it is illegal to be an atheist and illegal to possess a Bible and illegal for women to do hopscotch and to be gay and to, I don't know, I think left-handedness is legal there. Okay. There's an app called the Atheist app that was downloaded over 1 million times in that country. There are atheists there.
And
but also,
is there, or is it curiosity? Is it?
Well,
it's
undetermined.
People look.
It's a short point, but more to the point, because you started this with people that are up against death believe in God. There is one tribe in particular in the Amazon that is, I think, was largely uncontacted, more than 100 years ago, that doesn't have supernatural beliefs. They do not believe in God.
What's the name of the tribe?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But I can Google it while Eric finishes this up.
Yeah. So
also, you said you'd stay in touch. So
I am going to finish this up.
I'd like to read up on that. That's interesting.
I'll Google it while.
Yeah. And okay. So ultimately, while those are really cool things to look up, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because it still doesn't reflect on whether or not it's true. It's the ad populum argument, and we can take a look. So if we look at the heliocentric model versus the geocentric model of the universe, right? There was a time when everybody thought that the Earth was the center of the universe. And if you were to ask and say, why is the Earth the center of the universe? Why do you think that the sun revolves around the Earth? Well, look at it. You can see it happen. But we know now that that's false, right? That everybody knew that, and they were all wrong. And there's a good chance that, 1,000 years from now, they can look back at us and be like, man, those guys were so off base. Because the truth of a thing has nothing to do with how many people believe it. It's never a popularity contest. And looking at it that way will never get you to truth. And so if you are using that tool in any parts of your life, Damon, stop. You're not going to get anywhere to truth with that tool. So just throw it out, man.
Fair enough. Well done. Hole number 2. So I guess to kind of put a bow on this, I just I think that you have to, it's really important to kind of, with religion comes, or with believing a belief in a God, as it were, requires faith. Okay, and that's a very, very strong word.
Yeah, it has a lot of definitions.
And for somebody who does not believe in God, it isn't really a strong word. It's just, your eyes glaze over and you're like, okay, faith, all right, well, I got it.
Actually, you're talking to two people who will honestly talk to somebody and listen to them and reason and discuss with them.
Agreed. That's why I subscribed.
Damn straight, brother. Actually, Damon.
Tell your friends.
We are past time, and I want to give you a lot more time on another show.
I'm sorry.
Next week and in between now and or the week after next, because we can't take calls next week.
No. So we're going to let you go, but keep in touch in the meantime, and we hope to hear from you soon, because I know that everybody else will be too. Sound good?
Do you remember how to get in touch with us?
No, I just became a scriber an hour ago. So.
Hey! Okay.